And welcome back to the OHL podcast. I'm Brian, your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there's Wild Man Chris Wilds. And Chris, we've done all the position groups in the Big Ten. We've ranked them, the top 10, every group. We've worked our way through it, and now it's time to talk head coaches. Now, we normally do this in the wintertime after all the head coaches are hired and everything, but I purposely waited for two reasons. Number one, I was curious to see what would happen with Sharon Moore. And, of course, as we get ready to do this, then the NCAA releases information. So it's like, okay. And then the other reason is because with 18, I was very curious to see what would happen after spring ball and summer workouts and when we get into the Big Ten. And I also wanted to see these coaches do their interviews at the Big Ten Media Day before I kind of got an impression, because I could do a lot based off of last year, but with 4 new guys in, plus all the new head coaches that we got in the Big Ten, I wanted to kind of get a feel for them before we dropped our rankings. Just like our position groups, this is a consensus. I have my top 18. Chris has got his top 18. JR's got his top 18. We put it in the algorithm. It spits out a number, and here's how we do it. If you're 18th, if we think you're the 18th best coach, you get 1 point. If you're 17th, you get 2 points, and so on and so forth till you get to number 1, who got 18 points. You add them all up, you look at those totals, and then that gives us our order after the consensus. It's not difficult. However, some Michigan fan obviously thought we couldn't add up math properly in the comments, and I'm like, dude, do you not realize how consensus rankings work? There you go, my friend. All right.
They don't know how anything works except for the video camera, Eric. That's it.
Apparently. All right. Are we ready?
Let's roll.
All right. Number 18. Yes, he's the new head coach out there at UCLA, which is located in Los Angeles.
Are we sure?
That would be one. That's according to what he said at Media Days and what his shirt was wearing, the shirt he was wearing last week. Deshaun Foster, the former Bruin, made head coach after Chip Kelly exits stage left. No record to speak of in the Big Ten at the UCLA or anyplace else. This is his first gig. Chris, you and JR both had him at 17th. We'll get to the reasoning why. I had 18th. That was good enough to give him a total of 5 points. And that's not very many. And he's 18th overall.
Yeah, and it's not surprising to me. I figured you would screw up who should be there, Eric, but that's okay. We'll just say we base this off of his wonderful public speaking ability, and we'll roll from there.
There you go. All right, let's keep her rolling. Number 17. Well, that's Mr. Ryan Walters over at Purdue. I kind of feel sorry for Coach Walters. I do, because I think he's better than this ranking. But given the fact that he has had the two most difficult schedules in the Big Ten back-to-back years, it's gonna again. If Ryan Walters goes 6-6 this year, he might be the Big Ten Coach of the Year.
And probably should be with his schedule.
I mean, my gosh, 4-8 overall. He was 3-6 in the Big Ten last year. He has a winning percentage of only .333. Again, Chris, JR had him at 16th. I had him at 17th. He ends up being 17.
Again, I don't completely disagree with where he's at on this spot. Anywhere between 15 and 17 felt kind of right for Ryan Walters. But you're right. He's really got dealt some bad cards between scheduling, injuries last season. He had a lot to deal with. I think he's a lot better than the 17th ranking. I hope he gets the opportunity to prove that.
Yeah, I do as well. I like him. I really do. I think he could. I don't want to see him have to go back the route of getting released from the head coaching position in Purdue, having to go back to the defensive coordinator position to prove himself for a couple years, only to then find himself at like a G5 school that he then does really well at, and then has to climb his way back into a Power 4 school. I'd rather see him kind of hang around there, get it ironed out, hopefully get an easier schedule next year, and win 7 or 8 games for the Boilermakers, because I think he deserves that. This next guy, not so much. Number 16, that's Mike Locksley. I think he might be the most overrated coach in the Big Ten. I think he literally has been living off the fact that he had Taulia Tagovailoa as his quarterback the past couple years. You go back to what Mike Locksley did as a head coach. I think it was in like Nevada or something like that.
Was he at Colorado State?
No, it was somewhere out west.
Yeah, it was out west.
Maybe New Mexico.
New Mexico, maybe.
It was awful, terrible. Overall record 31-59, 29-33 at Maryland. Again, most of that with the help and assistance of Taulia Tagovailoa, who was the quarterback at Alabama, and when he left Alabama to go to Maryland, that's where he was able to pick up Taulia from.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the backstory there. 15-32 overall in the Big Ten, a winning percentage of only .344. Again, same theme here. You and JR both went 15th. I went 16th. He lands at 16th.
Yeah, again, I don't have a big problem with this, though, Eric. I mean, I definitely think he is in the bottom, fifth of the coaches bottom sixth of the coaches in the conference. And unlike Walters, who I think is trending up, I feel like Locksley is definitely trending down. Mm-hmm. He's going to have a rough season this year.
You shouldn't have the past 2 years that he has had at Maryland and be 16th on this list, but he is. And that tells you everything I think you need to know about what this team is going to do for him this year.
Yeah.
Number 15 is Jedd Fisch from Washington. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Look at those rankings down there for us. 13th, 13th, and 12th, and that's only good enough for 15th. And it's really interesting. What this means is the next few, there at least one of us have the next few guys a lot higher than the other ones, and it kind of pushed Jedd back a little bit.
Who that could be.
Hey,
Eric.
Hush it. 17-22 overall. No record in the Big Ten or at Washington yet, obviously. A .435 winning percentage. And having done that at Arizona is impressive. And I think Jedd Fisch is a pretty good recruiter. And I think he's only going to go up from here.
I don't disagree with you. I think he's a good coach. I think he had one really excellent season, though. I need to see it more sustained before I can say this guy's a top half of the conference kind of coach.
Okay. Number 14, the most controversial spot on this. And then this is where we're going to get either you had him too high or holy cow, what are you guys thinking? You're so biased. This is a lightning rod right now. Sherrone Moore at number 14. He is 4-0 as a head coach at Michigan. He had 4 games last year he filled in. He filled in once as head coach in the first 3 games of the season when Harbaugh was suspended. And he filled in those final 3, including a win over Ohio State. A winning percentage of actually 1,000, not 435. Sorry about that. I just copied it from another guy, and that's how it got there. So he actually has 1,000% winning percentage. You and JR both had him dead last, 18th. I had him all the way up to 8th. That's why he ends up at 14th and kind of messed up these rankings a little bit. Chris, explain yourself.
What explanation does anyone need? They cheated. He was part of a cheating scandal. He should not even be on this list. He should be in the unemployment line. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, his record is 0-0 because he's won nothing legitimately. Not a single game. Not a single snap in a single game did they win legitimately. I don't see how you can put him at number 8, Eric. I really don't. It boggles my mind. It makes my brain hurt. You ever seen that movie Scanners where the guy's head explodes? That's about the point where I'm at with you having this guy at number 8. He shouldn't even be allowed to be on the list. He disgraced the game of football.
He did. If he's going to be allowed to coach, and there's been nothing to say he's not going to yet. He did beat Ryan Day, who's going to be much higher on this list. head to head. He hasn't lost yet. I mean,
but he hasn't legitimately won yet either.
I understand your sentiment on that. So that's why I'm saying he's a lightning rod. How do you rank him? It's almost impossible. If you're a Michigan fan, you think he's probably number one. You're a Ohio State fan, you think he's 18th or doesn't.
You're a Michigan fan, you're a moron if you think this guy's number one.
Okay. Well, like I said, this is the controversial one. This next one is very interesting to me, and that's number 13, David Braun from Northwestern. He went 8-5 last year, shocked the world. Wasn't he the Big Ten Coach of the Year, if I'm not mistaken?
He was.
Yeah.
I believe so. And he should have been. Don't get me wrong. He should have been. What he did at Northwestern last year was great.
You and I both have him at 14th. JR has him at 10th. That's good enough to push him up to 13th. If he goes 6-6 again this season and goes to back-to-back bowl games with Northwestern,
he's top 10.
He's not only top 10, I think you were right when what you said in last night's show. He probably is not going to be gone and not going to be lasting long in Northwestern because that would be incredibly impressive. Any other thoughts on David Braun before we move on?
I like him. I think he's a good coach. I wish the guy the best. As long as he's not playing Ohio State, I hope he goes out and runs the table.
All right, this is the most interesting one here. Actually, the next three are incredibly interesting. Jonathan Smith, Michigan State, overall record 8-5. His Michigan State record is 0-0. Gosh, I'm finding so many mistakes I made. I apologize. His Big Ten record is 0-0, and his overall record is much more than 8-5. So that is a mistake as well. We'll see if we can't get that corrected for you. I apologize. Again, I make these things way too fast, and we try to push this content out way too fast sometimes. I apologize. Chris, you had him ranked 12th. JR had him ranked 11th. I had him ranked 13th. That ends up being 12th overall. For me, Jeff Fish and Jonathan Smith are basically the same guy. I gave the nod to Jeff Fish over Jonathan Smith in my personal rankings because of recruiting. However, what he did at Oregon State is impressive, and I think he can do that and maybe even a little bit more at Michigan State, Chris.
I agree. Not to disparage Oregon State, Eric, but Michigan State, in my opinion, is a much more prestigious program than what Oregon State is on the football field. I really feel like Jonathan Smith is the guy. As long as the Spartan fans and the administration of the school give him time to build, he's going to make them a solid perennial bowl team.
34-35 is his overall record as a head coach. 34-35, so almost 500. I apologize for those mistakes. This one is not wrong. Brett Bielema, number 11. He has an overall record of 115 wins and 77 losses between Wisconsin, Arkansas, and Illinois. His record for the Illini is 18-19. His Big Ten record overall, which includes the stint he had at Wisconsin, is 49-34. His overall winning percentage in college football is .598. Again, we were all kind of right there with one another. I had him at 10th, you had him at 11th, JR had him 12th, and Brett Bielema ends up landing at 11.
Yeah, and Brett Bielema is a good coach. I don't think you can deny that. You look at the numbers. And he's had success in the Big Ten. I will say this. I think he's had a lot, the majority of his success did come at Wisconsin, where he had a pretty good roster handed to him. He did okay when he went down to the SEC, nothing tremendous, but he was solid. And I think he's done a pretty solid job of rebuilding Illinois. He's going to get them to where they're at least, in the bowl conversation every year. And if you're talking Illinois football, I think that makes you happy.
Yeah. Sure does. All right. Number 10 is PJ Fleck from Minnesota. 80-56 overall. 50-34 is his record at Minnesota. However, 29-32 in the Big Ten. JR had him at 14th. I had him at 11th. Chris, you had him at 8th. His overall record's pretty good. He doesn't lose outside of the Big Ten very much. Big Ten record though, around 500 there.
Yeah, but I will say this as well. PJ Fleck, he probably should win more in the Big Ten, but I will say, first of all, he has a habit of losing key personnel every year, it seems like, as far as his players. He loses a big name player, it seems like, every year, as far as to injury. The other thing that I give PJ a little bit of slack on is if you look historically at some of the programs or some of the schedules versus the other Big Ten West programs, you find him playing, it seems to me, Ohio State and Michigan and the more power teams in the conference. It just seems like they play them more than what the other teams do. I think he's had a little bit harder road to, a little bit more difficult road to sow there in the Big Ten. I think that kind of is reflected in the record a little bit. But I truly believe he is a pretty solid coach, and he does have, a division title inside the Big Ten. He has won a MAC title, and if you look at some of these guys on these lists, they don't have a division title anywhere or a conference title anywhere. So I think that should, at least be noted.
All right, it's been noted. However, this next one, I'm going to totally demote you. Number 9 was Curt Cignetti from Indiana. 119 wins and only 35 losses, but this was at a small school and then at James Madison when they became Division I. No record in the Big Ten or at Indiana yet. He has a .772 winning percentage as a head coach. You and JR both had him at 9th. I had him at 15th. He's in Indiana, guys. Again, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. The ceiling for them, for Indiana, would be Kansas Jayhawks the last few years. And if you found your guy who can consistently make you a winner as far as a bowl-eligible team every single year, then I think you have done yourself well. Is that still worth being in the top half of the Big Ten in coaches? Not yet. Not right now. That's so projection in my mind.
Can I just say this? You criticized where he got his wins.
Yeah.
You know who else had never won a Big Ten game?
Jim Tressel, I understand that, but he won multiple national championships.
He did. He ran a powerhouse program at Youngstown State, no doubt about it. But you know what?
When Jim Tressel got here, everybody questioned him too.
Yeah.
But he was at Ohio State.
And
Where's Curt Cignetti at?
He's at Indiana, but he's not expected to win a national title. He may go out there and say that's the expectation, but that's not the expectation that anybody realistically has, Eric, and you know that. If you look at him, I think that he is capable of, I don't think it happens this year. I think he's got to get his program running there at Indiana. But I believe that this guy within a few years can have them being a consistent contender for bowl appearances. And if you're Indiana, I think you're happy with that.
Better be. You've never got it before like that. You've never received that much before. Number 8, Matt Rule from Nebraska, 52 and 50 overall is his record as a head coach. That's a winning percentage of .509. Last year for Nebraska, they went 5-7, 3-6. He has definitely got that fan base juiced up. I think even though he only went 5-7, there was so much potential, and they saw so much change in that 5-7 season that a lot of people are picking Nebraska to kind of be the Cinderella this year in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit, Eric. Matt Rule is a tremendous coach. He has a habit of taking programs that are down, and within 2 seasons, I mentioned this last night, within 2 seasons, making them bowl-eligible teams. He barely missed out in season 1. This is a program and a coach that is headed in the right direction. They have got the right guy for this job, Eric. Finally, they have found the right guy to run this program for the first time since, Bo Pelini, or maybe even going back further, Tom Osborne.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Frosty there was not the answer.
Mm-mm.
I think Matt Rule is. Grab yourself a big old glass of Rule-Aid, boys and girls. This guy is a great coach.
Interesting note. When I interviewed Andrew from the Nittany Blues podcast, and I asked him, if the unthinkable were to happen this year and James Franklin were to be relieved of his duties. Who do you think out there is someone that you think Penn State fans would be interested in? Matt Rule was the first name he brought up. That's interesting.
Well, you got to look at the guy. He went out and got one of the top recruits in the country this year to play quarterback at Nebraska.
He has ties.
Franklin can't even keep the top recruits in his own state.
He has ties to the region. I think that's a big part of it, and his success. So, I thought that was incredibly interesting. Number 7, the old grandpa on this list. He's been coaching longer than any of these guys. Gosh, I mean, you look at Ryan Day and Luke Fickell and those guys, and Kirk Ferentz was coaching when they were playing in college.
Yeah.
208 wins, 140 losses. Golly. 196 and 119 at Iowa. He has a Big Ten record of 122 and 85, a winning percentage of .597. I have him at 9th. I don't like Kirk Ferentz. I think he's really held that fan base hostage for way too long. I think Iowa could be much better than what they have been under Kirk Ferentz, in my opinion. I remember Iowa in the 80s. They had a number 1 team a few years.
Yeah, under Hayden Fry, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, can you build a winner in Iowa? Sure, you could. I just don't think it's going to happen under Kirk Ferentz. And watch out, Penn State fans, because as Chris pointed out in our Penn State preview, under James Franklin, if you settle and that's all you're ever going to be, take a look at this man right here.
This is your future.
This is what you have to look forward to, Penn State. You're going to basically be Iowa. I had him at 9th, JR 7th, you 6th.
Yeah, and a lot of that goes back to the longevity, the division titles won within the conference, the fact that he is one of the elder statesmen in the conference. But at the same time, I can see why people have him down farther, because I do believe he's a great defensive coach. As a head coach, I think he has underachieved.
Number 6, Greg Schiano. Now, out of everybody up at the upper echelon of these lists that we're doing, he has the worst record overall, 87 and 95. He's only been 9 and 27 in the Big Ten. Last year was his best year in the Big Ten. 478 winning percentage. But the dude took over a program that was worse than Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
And
Ash killed that program.
Oh, he had that thing dead and buried. Rutgers is no longer the laughing stock of the Big Ten. In fact, they beat Miami last year in the bowl game. A lot of people forget that. They won their bowl game over Miami. That was a statement win. Rutgers had Ohio State on the ropes last year without a quarterback who could throw the football. Do not sleep on Greg Schiano and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights this year. They could make some serious waves in this college football playoff this season. Chris, you have him at 10th. I had him at 5th. JR, who we know is a closet Rutgers fan, had Greg Schiano as his 3rd highest ranked coach in the Big Ten. He'll settle at 6th.
I'm surprised JR didn't have him at 1A. Schiano is a great coach. He's the winningest coach, like I said last night, winningest coach in Rutgers history. He's now turned this program around twice. He has no fear. He coaches with reckless abandon, Eric. He really does. He goes out and he will throw the kitchen sink at you. And I love that about him. And we've said it a couple times this year. Don't be surprised if come the first Saturday in December, if Ohio State or Oregon isn't looking across the field at the Scarlet Knights.
Something to think about. That is for sure. All right, our top 5, Chris. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Number 5, let's go to State College. James Franklin, 112, 54 overall as a head coach, 88 and 39 at Penn State. He has a Big Ten record of 56 and 32. That's a 674 winning percentage overall. JR had him 8th. You had him 5th. I had him 4th. That's good enough to land him at 5th.
No big dispute with this. I think that, I'm going to use my favorite line here. He is what we always thought he was. I mean, he is predictable. If nothing else, you know where he's going to finish. You know what they're going to do. Iowa fan or Penn State fans, go a few slides back and look at your future.
That's a pretty good analogy, in my opinion, man. I really do see it. Number 4, Ohio State fans will have one eye on this guy this year. It's Luke Fickell over in Wisconsin. Overall record is 71-31 as a head coach in college football. He already has 71 wins as a head coach in college football. That's pretty impressive. 8-6 at Nebraska last year. 5-4 in the Big Ten his first year. A .696 winning percentage. JR and I had him at 6. You had him at 4th. That's good enough to land him at 4th, Chris. And I don't understand why some Wisconsin fans are unhappy with Luke Fickell.
Well, maybe because, according to the slide, he coached in Nebraska last year. I don't know.
Oh, is that what oh, my
bad. No, it happens, Eric. It happens, man.
These are hard. These are when you just copy and paste, you miss things, man. I'm sorry.
But no, it's good. We're all good. Hey, no.
They're both Luke red and white.
Yeah. Luke Fickell, in my opinion, is probably one of the best younger coaches in college football. I think he is going to continue to improve at Wisconsin. Big Ten, look out. He's not coming to be content. He's not James Franklin. He's not Kirk Ferentz. He's not going to be content. He doesn't want to just go up and knock on the playoff door. He wants to kick the door down, run through it, empty your fridge, and, go home and celebrate. That's Luke Fickell. He is intense. He is a great coach, and you know what? It would not surprise me one bit within the next few years if he isn't knocking on that number 2, number 1 spot.
Yeah. Very well could happen. So I quickly just went through all the next slides. Apparently, all 4 next coaches have all coached at Nebraska. My bad.
Well, we have to call ourselves out because the Pod Squad is one of the most educated fan groups in college football, I promise you. And if we didn't call ourselves out, you can better believe we would be getting some text messages and instant messages.
I'm pretty sure the common fan are going to say something about this, our Nebraska friends. There it is. Lincoln Riley, USC's number 3. And I chose this picture on purpose because I do think that there's a very good chance after this year, that's what he throws. He says, peace out to the USC fans, and he's out of there. 74-18 overall as a head coach. That's really good. Of course, he accumulated most of that at Oklahoma because the last couple years at USC, not Nebraska. 19-8. He has no record in the Big Ten yet, obviously. We all had him at 3rd. Every single one of us agreed this is the 3rd best coach in the Big Ten.
Well, yeah, and other than the lack of championships on his resume, Eric, everything screams Lincoln Riley is a great coach. Good record, good conference record, good winning percentage. 3 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks in the last 7 years. The guy is a great offensive coach, but like so many coaches, struggles to get the big wins when it counts. That's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Is that the big wins.
Next guy is, even though he's only been a coach for 2 years, he's number 2 on this list. That's Dan Lanning. He's got a lot of momentum right now. Could be the head coach over in Tuscaloosa, Alabama right now if he wanted to be, but he decided to stay in Oregon and try to build a national champion for Phil Knight and all of those folks who celebrate Ducks. 22-5 overall. No record in the Big Ten, of course. Had a 22-5 record at Nebraska last year, apparently. The last couple of years. Kidding. 814 winning percentage. We all had him 2nd, Chris.
Yeah, and he should be 2nd. Like I said with Luke Fickell, this guy is one of the best young coaches in all of college football. Eric, this guy, right out of the Kirby Smart coaching tree, and he's got aspirations of, I think, making it to the playoff and showing up as mentor. He really does. I think our guy number one may have something to say about that this year, but Dan Lanning, I don't like him. I think he's cocky. And I talked last night about the fact that Cignetti has a confident arrogance about him. I think there's a difference between a confident arrogance and just outright cocky. This guy's cocky. That stupid-looking grin on his face gives him the most punchable face in all of college football, I think. But you know what? There's no denying. I may not like the man, but you got to respect what he's done.
Okay. I disagree about the punchable face thing.
But you're a good guy, Eric. I'm not here to be a good guy.
Some disagree. Number one. All right. Before
he looks angry in that picture, Eric.
One angry Ryan Day. Yes. Before non-Ohio State fans and even some Ohio State fans get on their keyboard and start typing about how biased this is and how he doesn't deserve to be number one, let me point out to you, he has the best winning percentage in the Big Ten currently. Mm-hmm. He's the only one of these coaches in the Big Ten who has a win in the college football playoff. Mm-hmm. He's the only one of the coaches in this list who's been to a national championship. Although he didn't win it, he's been to it. He's the only one of these coaches on this list who has had a top 2 or 3 recruiting class on this list. When you rank him compared to the other 17, he's got to be number one.
Well, and he's also one of only 3 coaches to, as a head coach, actually have a Big Ten championship. And he has 2.
Yep. And before you Michigan fans argue with me about Sharon Moore did not do that as a head coach. We're looking at head coaching. He was a coordinator. And on top of that, give me a break with the last few years. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Ryan, I don't disagree with you, Eric. And I am, and anybody who watches this will know how critical I am of Ryan Day. But I think without a doubt, he is the best coach in the Big Ten. I think this year he rights the wrongs that have occurred over the course of the last few years. He gets things going to where they need to be. I think that he has got a different intensity about him this year. I think he's got a different mindset, and I think that he's going to go out there and make a statement. And that statement simply is this: we run this conference. Don't think you do.
He sure acted like that this offseason. Now, being an off-season champion means you're a paper champion. We'll see what he does.
But as you said before, Eric,
this year,
in order to win the actual season, you pretty much have to win the preseason.
Yeah, you got to win the offseason if you're going to win during the season. So step 1 complete. And now they're working on step 2 right now, and that's to get through training camp healthy and geared up and in shape, mentally and physically ready to go to start this season. Like, share, subscribe. We really do appreciate it. I apologize for all my errors, statistical errors and naming errors in these slides. 18 of them. And I was trying to get them done quickly today, and obviously I wasn't paying attention as closely as I should. I apologize. If you're offended by that, get a life, really. We pointed out our own errors.
That's right. That's how we do it. We call ourselves out, so you can't.
Oh, my gosh. We appreciate each and every single one of you. What did we get right? What did we get wrong other than what we just pointed out that we got wrong? Let us know in the comments section below. We really do appreciate all of you for helping grow this channel as we inch our way closer to the start of the season. We're just right around the corner, just a few more weeks, and we'll be kicking it off against Akron in the shoe. Until next time, Chris. OH.
IO.
Go Bucks.